All right, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I got the slot just before lunch, so I'll try not to keep you for too long. Um, well, I'm an instructor from the Department of Information Systems, and today I'm just here to talk to you about my experiences with using blogging in classes, getting my students through some blogging. And it was a huge experience. So I spoke to Kenneth, and he thought it'd be nice for me to share some of this with you. We had some really good practices and some real big nightmares on this experience. But let me first put this activity in context. This was for a module that we conducted last semester called Computing in Society. Now, essentially, this module focused on the ethical, social, and legal implications or issues involved in the use of technology. And by vacuums here, I mean areas in which society or social norms haven't, or legal precedents hasn't really caught up with the use of technology. So for example, the way people use cell phones more and more every day, or how our privacy is being eroded by Facebook. And so the aim of this module was to get students to be aware of the issues, because they're going to be IT professionals. So we had a very broad set of topics to talk about. And at the same time, we wanted them to be very sensitive to the ethical issues involved in technology development. And so we wanted some depth in this. And because most of the students in this class were freshmen, we also had another objective, and that was to get them to start exploring the world of IT. Right? Because a lot of them come in as users. They're users of IT, they know the tools, they know how to use Facebook, but they don't really know the industry as a whole. They don't really know what else is out there from the perspective of an IT professional. So from an early stage, from the freshman module, we want them to start to get this exploration going so that they fall in love with the work that they're going to do. Now, this module is very different from other computer science or information systems modules, in that because of the focus on ethics, there was a big need for reflection. Right? We needed students to reflect on some of the things that were right or wrong. And we found from previous semesters, what happened was that, well, from the comments that students gave and the feedback, is that the module was very pop ethics. They would learn about the issues, they would become aware of them, but they wouldn't form meaningful opinions about them. They would just go ahead with, oh yeah, that's what the rest of the world is doing, so that's what must be right. And so we wanted them to say, we have an opinion about this. And so we thought, all right, what's the best way to do this? And we came up with the idea that we want them to reflect and have lots of deep reflection about some of the issues that we talked about in class. So this meant that they would have to be active in their learning, okay, active in their thinking, and they would have to mix in their personal experiences, their assumptions, their opinions about the world, about how things work, about what's right and wrong in terms of ethics. And reflective learning seemed to be helpful in accomplishing this. And there are several forms of, or several tools that you can use for reflective learning. Getting students to really engage in a thought process that's deeper. Right? And some of them are like concept maps, where throughout the semester students link concepts together. Or you can get them to write essays. Or you could use the discussion forums that you have in IVLE. Or you could use wikis to get them to collaborate on writing an essay, or you could use blogs. Right? So we chose blogs as the tool that we're going to use. For several reasons that I'll talk about a little bit later. But first, let me tell you what blogging is. Now, blogging is a publication platform, and it's extremely popular, and our students know it. They use it. Whether they are bloggers or not, it's difficult to say. But they definitely know what blogs are, and they definitely read content from blogs. A lot of them read daily contents about what people are eating. Right? You go for dinner, you take a picture, you put it up on your blog, and all your friends are looking at it. Right? And the thing about blogs is that the content is arranged chronologically. The most updated content is on the top of the blog. It's very easy to update. It's very easy to publish. And what makes it different from other publication platforms is that there's interaction in the form of comments. So you can put your views up online, and somebody can comment on them. And it's fairly simple, right? You write your content once, and you publish it through various means. You can either publish it on a website, or you can use an RSS feed, which is a really simple syndication process, or you can use aggregators to collect all your blogs. Let's say you like to read 4 different blogs, you can collect them and aggregate all the content onto a single web page where you can go and read it. So the process is known by our students. We didn't have to explain anything to them. They knew exactly what they had to do in terms of the technology. Now, there's several platforms that we could choose from. You could choose Blogger, Posterous, WordPress, or Tumblr. Everything's free. All these platforms are free. All these platforms are available for all our students to sign up on. And we chose the platform of the blog.nus. Now, there are a few reasons that we did this. Primarily, blog.nus uses WordPress, which is a very commonly known platform for blogging, and our students were quite familiar with it. Secondly, blog.nus kind of adds an official sphere within which students are going to be blogging. It has an IT use policy that they can't, or that they shouldn't really violate, and that really sets a good boundary for us. So why do we choose blogging instead of any of the other tools? Well, first, we thought that if we want students to develop opinions, then they need social interaction. They need to be able to communicate with others, to get their views out, and to have others comment on it. And then that interaction, in turn, builds sense-making and knowledge construction. More importantly, and this differs blogging from other tools, for example, the discussion forum, students had ownership over what they were saying. It was their intellectual property. They would come up with a thought process, they would document it down, and then they would put it online. And they would decide what they were writing, and they would decide how it was presented, whether there were images, videos, just plain text, or whether it was them taking a camera and a webcam and putting it in front of themselves and just speaking off the cuff. And blogging has some form of informality to it. Unlike essays, we could have achieved the same thing by asking students to submit essays to us. Right, every week just submit an essay on a particular topic. But because of this informality, it allowed them to comment on each other's blogs. It allowed them to create their own posts at their own time, at their own pace, whenever they were comfortable, whenever they had developed enough of a concept to articulate it into text. And finally, blogging really did help to improve some of their writing and communication skills, which is one of the benefits that we're trying to get. So in terms of the actual practice, this is the guidelines we had given students. Oh, sorry. Right, we put students into groups. Right, the class had about 170 students. And we said, all right, you guys are working in groups for your term project, and so your blog will be group-based. And later, this turned out to have some advantages over an individual blog. We told students that there is a minimum to the amount you can blog. We want to see at least 4 posts. That means that students would need to write, and there was no target length. We didn't set a minimum length. It could be a paragraph, it could be a few sentences, it could be a whole essay. But they need to do this at least 4 times throughout the semester. And this blog would account for 10% of their grade. And if they were to comment on other people's blogs, we would use those comments as participation marks for their individual participation throughout the semester, which was another 10% of their grade. And as to what they were to blog about, we left it open. So as long as it's related to the content of the course, whether your blog focuses on any topic, IT related, under the sun, any topic, any wide umbrella of topics, or whether you're going to focus on a particular area. Like some students chose to blog only about the impact of ICT on gaming, or gaming and ICT on society. Some students chose to blog about the security aspects and whether it's ethical or not, only in terms of cloud computing. Right, so different students, different groups formed niches, and some just decided to go for everything under the sun. So this was the basic framework in which we started the semester with. And over a period of 3 months, the blogging lasted from September to November of last year. We expected 668 posts, which was the minimum. We had 600 comments and 1,200 posts. This was a lot of work. It was really a lot. It's literally reading 1,200 essays, right, and grading each one individually. But we noticed a lot of other things. There was a lot of creative output from our students. Some of them didn't just want to go the text-based way, where they write text content. Instead, they created videos. And they uploaded these videos onto YouTube, and then linked the video into their blog on blog.nus. Some students chose to use, or they attempted to try a photo blog only. So they would take pictures capturing ICT use in society with some ethical element clearly displayed in the picture. But it was really hard to do that 4 times during the semester. So they mixed and matched that with text blogging. And because we had so many posts, a couple of weeks into this blogging exercise, we noticed students started jockeying for position, started jockeying for eyesight. Right? They would have shocking titles. Right? They would have themes. Each person in the blog would have a different name, a different character. Right? They would take identities, and each identity in that group blog would post on a different type of topic and have a different way of writing. And they would try to integrate this together as a team into a single blog. So the question is, did all of this work that they did lead to deeper insights and the reflection that we wanted to see? Well, in a word, it did. And there were several things that we learned from this exercise. This was the first time we had tried blogging in this module. For me, it's the first time I tried blogging as an exercise for my students. And all in all, we had 44 blogs. And I'm going to share with you 7 of the key things that I learned that were important for running this exercise. The first one was providing easy access to the blogs. So we had a class blog ourselves, and we provided a list for all the students to the individual blogs. Not only that, because it's a real pain to read 44 blogs by clicking on one website at a time. So we also provided an aggregated list on NetVibes. NetVibes is simply a website that allows you to aggregate different blogs so it looks like this. Right, so you can see, Group 4's blog, Group 13's blog, Group 7's blog, and that's our official class blog. And these are the different posts that were in that. And we also provided an OPML list. Now, an OPML file is simply an aggregation of blogs that students can take, download, and use their own blog reader to read all the blog posts in there. So we gave them a variety of ways to read each other's blogs. Second key thing that we did, we set up a really good grading infrastructure. Now this we learned along the way. After the first few weeks of blogging, me and my tutors read the blog posts, and we were quite sadly disappointed. Students were blogging about the right things, but they weren't getting deep and reflective. And so we said, all right, we need to provide clear guidance on how we're going to grade this, and what is it that we're looking for. So we gave them different stages of scoring. Right? We said, okay, if your blog post is relevant, this is the bare minimum, you get 1 mark. That's relevant to the course. If you have a descriptive blog post, you describe something that's useful for others to read, you get a little bit more. If you have some analysis in it, you draw a logical conclusion, that's great. if you're normative, which is the minimum we were trying to hit, meaning they were able to say something that some phenomenon that they saw was either ethically wrong or right, and here's an analysis of why, then they get that grade, that middle grade. And if students were able to consider multiple perspectives, right, perspectives from different people's point of views, from different ethical theories, then they would get really high grades for their blog posts. And finally, if they engaged other students, right, in subsequent discussions, then that would be the perfect or the ideal. So at the beginning of the semester, we started seeing stuff at the top, and as the semester progressed, it slowly moved down here. Of course, very few managed to reach this stage. So this grading criteria was not easy to come up with, but it worked for our module. And that's because we were trying to hit students at this point here, to become normative. And so they were able to reflect on the phenomenon they were seeing with the concepts they learned in class, together with their personal experiences and opinions and assumptions, to develop some sort of prescription. So the third thing we did was we started to highlight the blog posts in every lecture. So I'd spend about 10 minutes in each lecture, at the beginning of the lecture, highlighting different blog posts for that week to say whether or not they were good, they were bad, what point of that scale they hit, and what the students could do to make their blog post better. So for example, this was a blog post about a boy named Ryan who had committed suicide. And this was a real story. And we thought this was a little bit insensitive, right, because the boy is clearly named. We discussed this case in lecture, in tutorials. And the blog post that came out of this was relevant. It clearly discussed the issues, but it was not sensitive at all to the person reading it. And when I read it, I was afraid that if the father of this child who committed suicide because he was bullied online, he was persistently being bullied online for an extended period of time, and I figured that, if he had read this, it would not be a very tasteful thing. And so we highlighted this to the students, but we didn't censor them. We didn't say you have to change this, but we did advise them to say, be aware of who's reading your blog. It's not just you and your classmates, because these blogs are open to the entire internet. And then we had really great blog posts. This blog post was somebody discussing the ethics of sacrificing our rights to privacy for national security, with the idea that security cameras be placed around Singapore in a manner that would increase security. Just to show you how long this blog post was, this is what it was like. Right? It was very, very long. Now, at the beginning of the semester, the blog posts were short. They were 2 to 3 paragraphs. But as we went towards the end of the semester, certain students really explored certain topics. And some of them did something even better. Their 4 different blog posts built on top of one another, which was very nice. They found a synergy, they found a topic that they liked, and they continued to do it. And if they worked well in a group, everybody's blog posts continued to build on top of one another. So this really was an essay. Right? This person discussed the rights and responsibilities of the Singapore government, the rights and responsibilities of our citizens to privacy, and then even had a citation list. So this was quite an effort that they put in, and the students scored very well, but it was quite an effort to mark, which is an understatement. Just to let you know, Kenneth warned me at the beginning of the semester, and I thought to myself, yeah, I understand that he says there's going to be a lot of work. And then I thought, well, let's just try it anyway. But I'll show you the big mistakes that we made. Best practice number 4. We actually used their blog post to create tutorial questions, to create discussion topics for lectures, and to find out how students were coping with this course. This is an example of a post Early in the semester, we talked about a rape being conducted in an online environment. And the student was questioning whether ethics are relative to the context, the social context you're in. And this is something that we didn't bring up in class, but was brought up in the blog. We didn't talk about how relative ethics were in terms of different time periods, in terms of different social contexts, but because the student brought it up, we subsequently converted this into a tutorial question and discussed it in class during the lectures as well. So using the students' own doubts, own ideas back into the loop of our teaching materials turned out to be actually very useful. So we picked up a number of different questions that our students were blogging about. Now, finally, the last three. Now, earlier I mentioned that we made this a group effort instead of individual blog effort, and that was a good idea. We didn't realize it at the time, but most of the comments that happened inside a blog, most of the comments on somebody's post were made by other students of their group, which was really useful because the students helped each other to develop their blogging capability. We used checkpoints. So I said, all right, by the middle of the semester, everybody should have 2 blog posts. And by the end of the semester, you should have 2 more. Right? This way, we don't have the crunch towards the end of the semester, where everybody is just trying to finish 4 posts at the end. What we wanted was progress, to be able to see them move from analysis to normative to engagement. And finally, blog.nus really helped out with this. Because we had to grade everybody's blog, we started realizing that people were creating user IDs that had no relation to their real identity at all. Right? They were trying to remain anonymous. So very quickly in the exercise, in the second week or third week, we went in there and told everybody, you know what, change your user ID to something that I can identify you with so that I can give you marks. And that was helpful because we were within the blog.nus environment, so students felt a little bit safer doing that. Right, the worst mistakes that we had. First, keeping the momentum going. It was terrible. I spent 12 hours a week reading and commenting on students' blogs, and I couldn't get through half of it. Right? So I got my tutor. One of my tutors who was a postgrad student, and I assigned him 5 hours a week. Together, we still couldn't do it. So that's 17 hours a week of reading and commenting, and we couldn't get it done. After 4 weeks, we lost it. Right? He gave up. He came to me and said, look, I don't know what to say anymore. There's too much to read, you know, and so we lost momentum there. And the moment we lost momentum, the students lost momentum. When we stopped commenting on their blogs, first they came to ask us, have you read my blog post yet? You know? And so we're like, yeah, you know what, we're getting to it. There's a whole long list of stuff. You know, there's a lot of things to read. And it was not easy because some of these blog posts were very long, and to comment on somebody's ethical viewpoints was not simple. And our tutors weren't able to do it very well. And so we needed to develop that capability. And it was very difficult to do. So that momentum was vital. Now, another thing that we wanted to do was introduce a gaming mechanism into our blog, where we'd say, between the 3 tutors, we would try to vote to see who had the best blog post for the week. Every week, the person who gets the best blog post gets additional marks towards their grade. This encouraged students to post every week. And it worked too well. So we started off the first couple of weeks, and we told students this. We said, all right, if we get this done, we'll open up the voting as well, like American Idol. Right? The judges, the 3 tutors, have a vote, and the crowd has a vote as well. And we tried it, and it failed miserably because we just couldn't keep up with the number of posts. The posts were great, but it took so long to comment and to keep going back throughout the semesters because the comments just kept coming. So a post made in August, I would comment in August, I would come back 2 days later, there'd be another comment there, I would go back again, and it would just keep going until the end of the semester. So the moment I finish one blog post, I have to track it all the way to the end of the semester. That means constantly monitoring 1,200 essays. Right? And when my tutor gave up, I just lost it as well. Right? So somewhere between week 5 to 6, we started losing track of all the different blog posts and we fell behind. And when that happened, students started falling behind as well. So their blog posts became less frequent, which was good. It was really a blessing in disguise. And then we hit the point where the second checkpoint was coming up towards the end of the semester where they had to get their posts, and suddenly all their blog posts started going up again. And so we just had a scramble trying to keep up throughout the semester. That was a huge mistake. Second was that we should have led by example by having our own blog. Now we tried. I tried to have a blog for the course, but ended up posting stuff that was course related rather than my own viewpoints of some of the discussions that we were having in class. Now there were two reasons for this. The easy one was time constraints. With having to read their blog posts and all the other grading work and preparation of teaching materials, it was very difficult to sit down and write a comprehensive blog post, something that would be an exemplar for them. The second was capability constraints. I am not a blogger, and I've learned that it takes a particular type of person to be a consistent blogger. Right? But the other thing that I learned is that there is no perfect final product when it comes to blogging. It is constantly a discussion. So I tried to encourage my tutors and myself to at least start a discussion. Right? But we didn't do very well there, and we should have. And that was a place where we should have done well to lead by example, if not great posts, at least starting a discussion. Then the last thing that I thought was a mistake was that we didn't discuss some of the legal issues behind these posts. So very early in the semester, we had posts about how to break software. Right? So students would write about how to pirate software, how to break the little keygen codes. Students would display pictures of software with obscenities in them. And so that was one issue, and we talked about that in lecture. And I had told students, look, if there's obscenities and stuff, you better check the NUS policy. If you're talking about cracking software, you better check the NUS policy first. Rather than check the policy, they just deleted their posts. The other problem that we had was students at the beginning had text-based posts. Then they started bringing in content from other places, especially pictures, images, videos. And that, of course, is a copyright violation in many of the cases. And then finally, we had this example. A student was talking about the security of the NUS network and some of the issues of other students testing the security of the network. And here we had somebody external, right, from outside the course, comment on their blog saying, yep, NUS network's not secure. Here's a website that tells you how to find everybody's passwords. Right? And so, of course, ComSen found this, and subsequent action was taken to get it removed. But the students themselves did not remove it. They did not censor this content. And then that became a discussion point in class. Was it right for me to tell them to censor certain things? Right? Since we're talking about the ethics of technology, this became an interesting discussion that we had. So, the big question, was it a success? Was it a failure? Would I recommend it to somebody else doing a course where you want your students to reflect more, to get deeper thought processes? Well, I think that we had some success. We did manage to get students to explore a whole new world. These are freshman students. We did get them to get engaged with the world of IT. We did get them to get deeper thought processes, to have opinions about certain ethical issues. What we failed at was a good experience. Right? It was good. It was a mediocre experience for them at best. It could have been a lot better if me and my tutors were able to keep up with that momentum. Would I recommend it for anybody? Yes. Now, this post, if you look at the date, was December 25th, way after the grading period was over. Right? So September, October, November, and we still have students making blog posts. right, as recent as last week. And so they're continuing this habit of engaging themselves and their peers through blogging. And if you're looking to get your students engaged in the same way, in the same type of deep processes of thinking, then yes, I suggest blogging. I do recommend blogging as a good exercise. Just watch out for the momentum issue. All right, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?